My jealous husband threw me down a well, thinking I was cheating on him with his own brother, but he never imagined I would survive, and that his worst nightmare was about to knock on his door. My story didn't begin with screams or blows. It started with flowers, promises, and a man who swore to save me from everything. Camila was 28 when she thought life was finally smiling on her. Born in a neighborhood where poverty wasn't a problem, but a way of life, she got by with informal work, her mother's chronic illness, and the weight of a childhood marked by her father's abandonment and the tragic death of her younger brother. Camila was beautiful, but not the kind who tries to be. She had large, dark brown eyes where a quiet sadness lived. She had learned to smile with her lips, never with her eyes. Esteban met her in the waiting room of a public clinic. He wore a black suit and a luxury watch. She wore a second-hand blouse that barely covered her shoulders, hunched from exhaustion. Her mother had advanced pneumonia, and Camila hadn't slept or eaten for 3 nights, her gaze silently pleading for help she didn't dare ask for. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice deep and refined, as if he didn't belong in that grimy hallway. She hesitated. "I'm hanging in there." That phrase, "I'm hanging in there," moved him. Or so she thought. Esteban, who had come to the clinic on business, sat beside her. He bought her a coffee, offered her a ride home. He didn't insist. He didn't invade. He was kind, protective, fascinating. For weeks, he pursued her, courted her like no one ever had. White roses, dinners at restaurants where the silverware was intimidating, and words that made her feel like someone had finally truly seen her. "Camila, you weren't born to suffer. I can change everything for you," he told her one night as they walked through a park lit by soft lanterns. She, who had always been suspicious of love, felt like maybe, just maybe, this time she could let her guard down. And she did. They married 3 months later. A small, private wedding. Esteban said he didn't want the media or social media to ruin their sacred moment. Camila, thrilled about her new life, didn't ask questions. They moved to a massive house on the outskirts of the city, with a view straight out of a movie. Camila thought she was living a dream. The first sign was subtle. One night, Esteban stared at her as she picked out a dress for a gala dinner. "That neckline doesn't suit you. It looks vulgar." "It's not for you," he said softly, never raising his voice. Camila felt ashamed. She wanted to tell him it was the only dress she liked, but she said nothing. She went back to the closet and chose another one with a high collar. She wanted to please him. She wanted him to be proud of her. Then came the comments about her friends. "Why do you need to see them? They're all stuck in place. They just want to use you. You're on a different level now, babe." When Camila asked to visit her mother, he frowned. "Your mother always filled your head with strange ideas. She always made you feel guilty for things that weren't your fault. I take better care of you than she ever did." And that's what confused her most. Because he was right. Her mother was harsh, cold, emotionally distant. But still, she was her mother. Camila began to feel like she was living in a world that looked perfect on the outside, but where the air grew thicker every day. She smiled at parties, wore designer clothes, and was introduced as the wife who brought a smile back to mogul Esteban Morales. No one knew that inside, something was breaking. The most painful part was that Esteban never yelled. He never hit her. He just corrected her, just guided her, just made decisions for her, because, according to him, she didn't yet understand how the real world worked. He gave her money, but asked her to return it with receipts. He told her she didn't need to work. That was for women who weren't as lucky. That she should rest, take care of herself, be beautiful for him. "You don't have to worry about anything. I do everything for you," he repeated like a mantra. And Camila, who had never had a space of her own, convinced herself that this was love. That what she was feeling was just her own insecurity. That maybe she was ruining her happiness because she didn't know how to live it. Everything changed when Gabriel came back. Gabriel Morales was Esteban's younger brother. He had been out of the country for years, working with NGOs, traveling through Asia and Latin America, helping in rural communities. His return was a surprise to everyone, including Esteban, who didn't seem too thrilled about it. Camila met him at a family dinner. From the very first moment, Gabriel looked at her differently. Not with desire, nor with superiority, but with a disarming tenderness. He asked her questions and actually listened to the answers. He didn't try to correct her. He didn't make her feel stupid. "And what did you do before marrying my brother?" he asked her with a genuine smile. "I worked at a fabric store," she replied. "And did you like it?" Camila hesitated. No one had ever asked her that. Not even Esteban. "I liked feeling useful, independent," she said, lowering her gaze. Gabriel didn't reply, but his silence spoke louder than any comforting words. From that moment on, he began visiting them more often. Sometimes he brought books for Camila, other times he talked about his travels. He gave her a plant, saying it was just like her, resilient, with unexpected flowers. Esteban began to feel uneasy. "My brother is a free spirit, but unstable. Don't fill your head with hippie fantasies," he told her one night during dinner. Camila didn't reply, but for the first time, she felt something inside her wanted to rebel. Gabriel was just being kind. That was all. Why was that a problem? One afternoon, while she was watering the plant Gabriel had given her, Camila heard him arrive through the garden. She smiled when she saw him. "I came to check on the girl who's blooming," he said, pointing to the flower pot. "I'm not very good at taking care of living things," she replied playfully. Gabriel looked at her seriously. "That's not true." Silence. "You don't smile like someone who's happy," he suddenly said. "You smile like someone who's surviving." The words hit her like a painful truth. She felt like crying, but didn't. "I'm fine," she whispered. "And if you weren't? Would you be able to say it?" She didn't answer. That night, Esteban came home earlier than usual. He checked Camila's phone without her noticing. He saw a message from Gabriel that said, "Would you like to come to the gallery tomorrow? There's an exhibit of incredible women artists. I thought you might enjoy it." Esteban didn't say anything. He smiled. He walked over to Camila and stroked her hair. "Do you know how lucky you are?" he whispered. Camila nodded. That night, she had a nightmare. She dreamed she was walking through a rose garden, but all the roses had thorns and bled when touched. She woke up sweating. Esteban was asleep beside her, his face calm, like someone without doubts. Camila began to feel watched. Sometimes she heard clicks on her phone. Other times, she found her underwear drawer disturbed. One morning, she even found her journal open on the bed. But she couldn't accuse anyone. She had no proof. Gabriel invited her out again, but Camila replied, "I can't. I'm sorry." He looked at her with a mix of sadness and respect. "I promise I won't insist. I just wanted you to know that there are different kinds of love." That night, Esteban served her wine. He stared at her as she drank. "Gabriel doesn't understand your world. He just wants to pull you into his. But you weren't born to be just another one. You're mine. And with me, you'll become everything you ever dreamed of." Camila smiled. Not out of conviction, but out of necessity. In her mind, a phrase repeated endlessly. What if I was never free? What if this isn't love, but a prison in disguise? The cage looked like a castle, but it was still a cage. And the silence was the lock. Camila set her fork down on the plate without touching her food. Esteban watched her from across the table, arms crossed, wearing the kind expression of someone who knows the exact poison that works without leaving a trace. The silence between them was heavy, but no longer uncomfortable. It had become routine. Esteban looked at her with his head slightly tilted, as if analyzing a painting that disturbed him. "Are you okay, love?" he asked softly, like someone caressing before wounding. Camila tried to smile, but something inside her no longer knew how to react naturally. Her body felt slower, her mind foggy, as if she were living with a permanent veil between herself and the world. It had been like that for weeks. Extreme fatigue, nausea, difficulty concentrating. Sometimes she woke up startled, her heart pounding as if she'd run for miles. Yes, just a little dizzy. Maybe it's the change in weather, she said, lowering her gaze. Esteban stood up calmly, walked around the table, and stroked her hair with calculated slowness. I told you. It's the stress. That's why I got you those pills. They're natural, they won't hurt you, they'll just help you relax. Camila nodded without arguing. She had no energy. For the past few weeks, she had been taking capsules he gave her in a small white box with no labels. Esteban said they were prescribed by a doctor friend of his, a specialist in emotional health. She never met him. She didn't ask much either. Esteban kissed her forehead and whispered, I have a meeting now. Don't go out, okay? They're checking the condo's security cameras today, and I want you here in case something fails. You could be mistaken for someone else, and you know how security is. Camila nodded again. It was easier to obey than to try to explain that she didn't understand why she was being watched in her own home. Esteban left. As soon as the door closed, she ran to the bathroom, opened the pill box, and looked at them. No brand. Just a small beige capsule, almost harmless. She thought about throwing them away, but didn't. She felt more and more trapped in an invisible net gripping her mind. She sat on the couch, turned off her phone, and stared at the ceiling. It was as blank as she felt inside. Her reflection in the dark TV screen showed a strange image. She looked different. Paler, with deep under-eye circles. Duller hair, as if someone had turned off the light inside her without warning. She remembered, unwillingly, her mother's voice years ago. Men don't want a free woman, Camila. They want a moldable one. Don't let them break you. She hadn't understood those words back then. Now, they started to hurt. A sudden noise snapped her out of her thoughts. It came from Esteban's study. She got up clumsily and walked quietly. She opened the door carefully. Inside, everything looked the same. The perfect bookshelf, the tidy desk, the neatly stacked papers. But in the corner, a light was blinking on the computer monitor. She walked closer. It was a folder with her name. Camila, recordings. She clicked. An endless list of dates and videos appeared, all with specific times, all with locations inside the house: kitchen, living room, bedroom, bathroom. She felt the blood drain from her body. She opened one at random. It was a recording of her folding clothes, another, brushing her hair, another, crying in the bedroom when she thought she was alone. The camera was inside the mirror. She stepped back, disgusted. She closed the program, but the damage was already done. She had to leave. Breathe. Call someone. Gabriel. He was the only one who might listen. She grabbed her phone, but Gabriel's number was gone. She searched the contacts, the messages, the recent calls. Nothing. Esteban had erased everything. She felt dizzy, clung to the doorframe to avoid falling. The air grew heavy. She started to hyperventilate. Her vision blurred. When she opened her eyes, she was lying on the couch. Esteban was next to her, holding a glass of water. You fainted, my love. Did you take the pills? Camila felt a sharp pang of fear. She nodded, lying. Esteban smiled, but there was no joy in his eyes. You scared me. I don't like seeing you like this. But I know it's because you're under a lot of pressure. I want you to start a new routine with me. Yoga, controlled diet, meditation. No social media, no distractions. Just you and me, the way it should be. Camila nodded again, like an automaton. She didn't know how to say no. She didn't know if she wanted to. That night, in the dark, she began to cry silently. Inside, not even the tears would come out anymore. Days later, Gabriel reappeared. He showed up unannounced, holding a book and wearing a gentle smile. Esteban wasn't home. Camila saw him from the balcony and ran downstairs. "Gabriel," she whispered with a trembling voice. He looked at her with surprise. "You look bad. Are you sick?" Camila didn't respond. She hugged him and broke down. She cried in his arms like a lost child. He didn't ask anything. He just held her. "Camila, what is my brother doing to you?" She looked up. "Nothing. Or everything. I don't know. I can't think clearly." Gabriel looked at her, holding back anger. "Are you taking something? Medication?" She nodded. "He gives it to me. Says it's natural." Gabriel asked to see them. They went upstairs. She showed him the white box. He took a picture and put it away. "I'm going to look into this." She looked at him, afraid. "I don't want to be locked away, Gabriel. I don't want to disappear." Gabriel clenched his fists. "I swear nothing's going to happen to you. But I need to know how far this has gone." Before leaving, he looked her in the eyes. "You're not crazy, Camila. You're not exaggerating. You're trapped. And I'm going to help you." Camila felt a small sense of relief, but also a new kind of fear, because if he knew the truth, Esteban would soon know it too. That night, Esteban came home earlier. He took off his jacket, poured 2 glasses of wine, and invited her to sit with a sweet smile. "I felt nostalgic today," he said. "I thought about everything I've done for you. How I rescued you. Remember? From that clinic, from that life." She looked at him, motionless. "Yes," she whispered. He took her hand. "And I thought, what do you think people would do if they found out that the woman I pulled out of the mud is now betraying me with my own brother?" Camila felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold. "I haven't betrayed you," she said in a trembling voice. Esteban chuckled softly. "You don't need to sleep with someone to betray me, Camila. It's enough to want to think about him. To seek comfort where you shouldn't." Camila shook her head. "I just want to be okay." He stroked her face. "And I want the same. That's why, starting tomorrow, your sessions with the doctor will be here at home. I don't want you going out. I don't want the world to confuse you anymore." She looked at him with red eyes. "I'm not confused." Esteban leaned closer. "Then prove it. Stay with me. Only with me." Camila lowered her gaze. He kissed her forehead. "Everything's going to be fine. Trust me." That night, Esteban gave her a new capsule. She placed it on her tongue, pretended to swallow it, and when he left, she ran to the bathroom and spit it into a tissue. Then she hid it. Something had changed in her heart. She no longer wanted to survive. She wanted to escape. She wanted to live, even if it was the last thing she ever did. Esteban mustn't know she had started to see things clearly, that for the first time in months she didn't feel drugged, clouded, broken. She no longer wanted to survive. She wanted to live, even if it was the last thing she ever did. That night, the silence was thick, charged with a tension even the walls of that house couldn't contain. Esteban ate dinner across from her, never taking his eyes off her, wearing a meticulously drawn smile. He didn't ask anything. He didn't mention Gabriel. But his eyes said everything. Every time Camila looked down at her plate, she felt like he already knew she was waking up. "I've decided we're leaving this weekend," he said suddenly, wiping the corner of his mouth with a napkin. "To the estate. We need space. Privacy. Away from everything." Camila swallowed hard. It wasn't a suggestion. It was an order. For what? She managed to ask. "I want us to start over. Like when we first met. I need to reset everything that's been damaged." The word reset echoed in her mind like a warning. Her body reacted with chills that Esteban didn't seem to notice. Or pretended not to. "And Gabriel," she dared to say. Esteban smiled. He didn't answer. He simply raised his wine glass and made a toast in the air as if his silence were enough. The next day, they left early. Camila barely had time to pack some clothes. Esteban drove calmly, talking about the improvements he had made to the estate, how that place had always been his refuge, his sanctuary, his only piece of peace since his mother's death. The road to the estate was long and lonely. The trees closed in like green tunnels on both sides of the road. Camila stared out the window in silence, her heart racing. There was something in Esteban's calm that didn't match what she felt in her gut. They arrived before nightfall. The house was large, old, with colonial architecture surrounded by thick forest. It was completely isolated, no cell signal, no internet connection. Just birds, wind, and a deep sense of absolute seclusion. Esteban helped her unload the suitcases. "I want to show you something before it gets dark," he said. "It's part of this house's history." Camila hesitated. "I'm tired. It won't take long. Trust me, love." He walked ahead of her, across the garden and into a hidden path between the trees. She followed him, her steps unsure on the damp earth. After 10 minutes of walking, they reached a circular stone structure, covered in moss and surrounded by thick roots. An old well. Camila looked at it uneasily. "What is this?" Esteban turned to her, his eyes shining. "I used to hide here when I was a kid. When my mother yelled at me. When my father hit me. This was the place no one could reach me." Camila felt a lump in her throat. Not because of the well, but because of the way he said it. There was real sadness, but also something twisted. "And why are you showing me this?" "Because I want you to understand what it's like to feel alone. Abandoned. Hurt by the people who are supposed to love you." She didn't know what to say. She took a step back. He noticed. "Are you afraid of me?" "No. You're lying." Esteban looked down and took something from his pocket. A manila envelope. Just like the one he had left on the table days before. He opened it and pulled out more photos. He tossed them on the ground in front of Camila. "Are you going to say this is a lie too?" She knelt down. Photos of her and Gabriel. In different moments, in the house, the garden, the library. Footage from hidden cameras. One even from the bathroom. "You were spying on me in the bathroom? Don't answer a question with another. Did you sleep with him?" Camila looked at him, her soul in her eyes. "Never. Not once. Gabriel only tried to help me. You locked me up. Isolated me. Drugged me. That's not love, Esteban." He looked at her with restrained rage, but also with a pain that seemed older than she was. "You don't understand what it means to love. No one taught you. Neither you nor me. No one taught me to kill, and yet I don't," she said with a courage she didn't know she had. Esteban looked at her as if she had just become someone else. Then, without warning, he pushed her. It was so fast that Camila didn't have time to scream. She fell backward, right toward the edge of the well. She slipped. She felt the emptiness. The world spun. The impact was brutal. She landed on a mix of mud and stones. She felt a crack in her leg. The pain was immediate, paralyzing. She tried to move, but her head hit the damp wall, and she lost consciousness. Esteban looked down for a few seconds. He saw her motionless, unconscious, bloodied. He closed his eyes, took a deep breath, turned around, walked back down the path with steady steps, as if he had just buried a part of himself. Back at the estate, he cleaned his hands, burned the envelope with the photos in the fireplace, took his satellite phone and called his lawyer. "Camila has disappeared. I think she left with another man. I'm devastated." His voice was perfect, sad, desolate, like a theater actor. No guilt, only strategy. Hours later, he posted a photo of her on social media with a heartbreaking message. "If anyone has seen her, please contact me. I love her. I'm shattered." At the bottom of the well, Camila opened her eyes. She didn't know how much time had passed. The sky was just a distant. Her leg was bent at an impossible angle. The right side of her face burned. She tried to move, to scream. She couldn't. She felt cold, afraid, alone, abandoned, but alive. It wasn't the end. It couldn't be. With a barely audible voice, her lips dry with blood, she whispered, "I can't die here, not for someone who said they loved me." And with that whisper, she began her fight to get out. Or to endure. Because love that isn't freedom isn't love. And because pain that doesn't kill transforms. The earth smelled of dampness, wet stone, dried blood. Camila barely breathed. Her injured body trembled with every involuntary spasm. The pain was no longer sharp. It was a constant buzzing, as if her bones refused to accept she was still alive. She didn't know how long it had been since Esteban had thrown her. Days and nights blurred together with the echo of her broken thoughts. She remembered fragments, but couldn't build a clear timeline. She had wanted to die. For seconds, minutes, she had wanted it all to end. But something inside her, something visceral and primitive, didn't give up. She couldn't move. She barely turned her neck. The sky was a pale crack between the treetops, almost unreachable. She had lost the sense of hunger, but her throat burned as if filled with embers. Then, she heard footsteps. At first, she didn't recognize them, thought it was another dream. But they were real. The crunch of dry leaves, boots on stone, a cane gently tapping the edge of the well. A figure appeared above her. An older man, with a scruffy beard, dark eyes, and a wide-brimmed hat that looked as old as his hands. "Hello?" The man called out, his voice rough. Camila tried to speak, but only a groan came out. Good heavens. The next things were blurry. A rope. A tied bucket. An improvised stretcher. Whispered voices. Water on her lips. Then, darkness. She woke up in a rustic room with a wooden ceiling, mud walls, and the smell of old tobacco. She was in a bed covered with rough sheets next to a wood stove softly crackling. A dog slept at her feet. "Can you open your eyes now?" The same voice said, softer this time. Camila blinked. Where am I?" "At my house. My name is Pedro. I found you in the well. I thought you were dead." She tried to sit up. She screamed in pain. "Don't do that. You have 2 broken ribs and your leg is almost destroyed. But you're alive. That's a miracle." Camila looked at him, confused. She didn't recognize him. She didn't remember his name. Her mind was a collection of loose images, a blue dress, an open window, a glass of wine, a face she didn't want to remember. She closed her eyes tightly. "I don't know who I am," she said softly. Pedro watched her without surprise. "Don't tell me. Amnesia. That would explain a lot. I've been talking to you for 2 days, and you just moaned. You didn't say a name, nothing." Camila felt tears forming without permission. "I don't know why I was in that pit, but I feel like someone wanted to kill me." Pedro approached with a cup of broth. "Drink this. I don't want you to die now that you're starting to get better. Nobody falls into that pit by accident, and you had wounds from someone who pushed you." Camila drank slowly. Her stomach betrayed her, and she vomited a few seconds later. Pedro didn't complain. He cleaned up silently, with a calmness she didn't understand. "Do you live alone?" "For many years now. My wife died. My kids, well, that's another story." "Kids?" "2 boys. I never raised them. She left with them when they were little. She never forgave me for something I did. Or for what I didn't do. I don't even know anymore." Camila looked at him, as if something in his words touched a dormant chord inside her. Pedro noticed her reaction. "Does it ring a bell?" "I don't know. There's something I feel in my chest when you talk, like a sharp pain." Days passed. Pedro treated her wounds with home remedies. Herbal ointments, hot leaf bandages, boiled water with roots. Camila slowly improved. She regained torso mobility, could sit, eat without vomiting. Her leg was still immobilized, but the pain was bearable. The dog, a gray mutt named Rio, never left her side. One night, while Pedro carved wood in silence, Camila approached limping. "I think my name is Camila." Pedro raised an eyebrow. "Are you sure?" "No. but I dreamed of a voice yelling that name at me. It made me cry. And when I woke up, I said it out loud. Then maybe you are. Can I ask you something? Anything you want. What was your children's mother like? Pedro sighed. A strong woman. Beautiful. Controlling. She never forgave me for lacking ambition. I wanted peace. She wanted power. She left with another man. A politician. She changed her last names. I never knew more. Only that she lived in the city, rich, with kids in private schools. Camila frowned. What was her name? Alicia Vergara. The name hit like thunder. Camila felt something break. A mental glass. Alicia Vergara. Esteban. Gabriel. Her head started to vibrate, as if thousands of pieces snapped together at once. She fell to the ground, trembling. Pedro rushed to hold her. What's wrong? I know her. I saw her in a portrait. In a house. I think she was the mother of someone who hurt me. Pedro went pale. What's his name? Esteban. Esteban Morales. Pedro sank into a chair. Morales wasn't his real last name. She changed it when she married that politician. My kids were named Esteban and Gabriel. Silence filled the room like smoke. Camila couldn't speak. Pedro brought his hands to his face. My God, you come from them. He tried to kill me, she whispered. Pedro didn't cry, but something inside him shut down. Then I failed as a father without even knowing it. Days later, Camila began to have more memories. Gabriel. His voice. His hugs. The books. The garden. The fear. Esteban. The cameras. The pills. The well. She also had a different dream. One in which she held a baby. The baby was crying, but not out of sadness. She woke up startled. Went to the bathroom. Vomited for no apparent reason. She did it 2 more times that day. Pedro looked at her suspiciously. You're different. Your eyes are more open, more alive, but also sadder. I need to know something, Camila said seriously. I need a pregnancy test. Pedro didn't ask why. He rode out on horseback to the nearest town, several miles away. He came back with a white box. Camila trembled as she opened it. The result was immediate. Positive. I don't know if it's Esteban's or if it's the product of something darker. Pedro hugged her. I don't know who you are, but your eyes carry the same sadness I saw in the mother of my children before she disappeared. Camila cried like an orphan child. I want to get out of here. I want to report him. I want to live. But I have no strength. No legs. No one who believes me. Pedro stood up. You have something better than all that. You have the truth. And truth, daughter, even though it sometimes comes late, it always comes. At the same time, in the city, Gabriel was beginning to ask questions. He hired a private investigator. Trace his lies. Calls. Camila's story was about to resurface. And with it, the truth buried for decades. The night Camila found out she was carrying a life inside her was also the night rage gave her strength back. Fear was no longer a barrier, but fuel. Her body was still weak, but her mind began to stitch together with surgical precision each memory that, for months, had been covered in dust by manipulation and drugs. Esteban had not only tried to kill her, he had erased her. He had turned her into a ghost of her own story. But she would not be his victim. Not a second time. Pedro watched her silently as she clumsily wrote in an old notebook she had found in a chest. She jotted down names, dates, loose phrases that emerged from her subconscious with the same force as screams underwater. It was her way of becoming herself again, of remembering not only what Esteban had done to her, but also who she was before it all began. Gabriel, meanwhile, was in the city, walking down a dark path of lies woven with threads of money, power, and complicity. He had hired an investigator, a retired police officer who knew the shady workings of the system. What he found in less than a week was enough to destroy his brother's public image. Records from private clinics where Esteban signed psychiatric prescriptions for, an anxious patient under false names. Surveillance cameras illegally installed in the room with hidden microphones. Manipulated transcripts of conversations. A false medical history describing Camila as unstable, paranoid, and suicidal. Gabriel felt nauseous reading every document. And since when has this been going on? He asked the investigator. The oldest records date back 6 months before they got married. The guy was already planning everything. Gabriel closed the folder. His throat burned. Not from anger, but from guilt. For not having seen before what was right in front of his eyes. For having believed his brother was just intense, jealous. No, Esteban was something else. Something dangerous. And now he knew. When he arrived at Esteban's apartment, he entered without announcing himself. He had a copy of the keys his mother had left him years ago. He found Esteban in the office, surrounded by books and papers. Esteban looked up, as if his presence didn't surprise him at all. "Brother," he said with an empty smile. "How nice to see you. I was just thinking about you." Gabriel didn't answer. He dropped the folder on the desk. Esteban looked at it without opening it. "You know, right?" "I know everything," Gabriel replied through clenched teeth. "Everything?" Esteban tilted his head. "That's a big word. Does it include your feelings for my wife?" Gabriel lunged at him with a force even he didn't recognize. He grabbed him by the shirt and pushed him against the wall. "She's not your wife. She's a woman you almost killed." Esteban didn't defend himself. He just looked at him with a chilling calm. "And who said I wanted to kill her? You threw her down a well. You wrote her off as dead. Life is full of accidents." Camila was always emotionally fragile. Maybe she tripped. Maybe she ran away. Enough. Gabriel let him go. "I know what you are. You forged prescriptions, drugged her, watched her, and all for what?" Esteban adjusted his shirt collar without losing his composure. "Because I can. What kind of monster are you?" Esteban walked to the window, looking out over the city as if it were his own. "Do you think I can love, brother?" "No. But I can possess, and Camila, I possess her." Gabriel felt something inside him break. It wasn't just rage. It was sadness. For the boy Esteban had been. For the brother he never became. "You're beyond saving." Esteban turned around. "And you have no guts. You were always the sensitive one. The altruistic one. The weak one. That's why she looked at you. Because women always look for the good ones until they get bored." Gabriel closed his eyes. He needed to think clearly. Camila was alive. He felt it. She had to be. And if she was alive, she had to come back. He needed to expose him. Days later, Esteban announced a grand charity gala in honor of Camila. A media stunt titled "A Light That Went Out Too Soon." He invited politicians, businessmen, artists. He dressed in mourning. Organized speeches. Photographs. Fake tears. Camila saw the announcement in the newspaper Pedro brought every week from the town. She froze. "He's going to use my death to clean up his image," she whispered. Pedro looked at her. "You can't let that happen." Camila remained silent. Something inside her no longer feared. Something inside her had died the day she fell. And what was left was stronger than any threat. "I'm going to that gala." Pedro looked at her surprised. "You can't walk well. You're weak. You're pregnant." "Precisely because of that. Because now it's not just about me. It's about what I carry inside." Pedro didn't insist. He helped her pick out clothes. Lent her a wig. An old dress that had belonged to his wife. Camila transformed. She wasn't the same woman who had been locked up. Nor the same who fell. Now she was someone else. Someone who had risen. The night of the gala, Esteban stood center stage. Gabriel watched him from the back of the room, eyes full of venom. "Camila was my light," Esteban said with a broken voice. "The woman who saved me, who taught me to love. Her absence has broken me, but I want her memory to help save other women like her." Applause. Gabriel felt nauseous. Then he saw her. Camila. entering through the main door, with her leg bandaged, leaning on a cane, dressed in black, with the firmest gaze ever. A murmur ran through the room. Esteban saw her. His expression froze. The mask cracked. Camila walked to the stage, took the microphone. The entire room fell silent. ChatGPT Plus. My name is Camila Vergara. I am not dead. And I am not a memory. I am a woman who was manipulated, drugged, isolated, and almost killed by the man who today pretends to cry for me. Screams. Cameras. Confusion. Esteban tried to approach. Camila, you're confused. I'm not confused. You are. You thought I wouldn't come back. You thought no one would listen to me. But I'm not afraid anymore. Gabriel stepped onto the stage. He held her. Esteban lowered his gaze. He knew there was no escape anymore. The police arrived minutes later. Esteban offered no resistance. He let them handcuff him with a dry smile. Don't worry, he said to the officers. This is just another story for the media. And I always give good headlines. Camila looked at Gabriel. Her eyes no longer cried. They only shone. Are you ready for what's coming? He asked her. No, but I'm alive, and that's enough to start. Camila felt the blast of lights, cameras, and the gazes of dozens of people fixed on her like blades cutting through her soul. She stood before the entire country, not as a victim, but as a survivor who had returned from the abyss. She wore no makeup, no designer clothes, no written speeches. She only carried her story, her truth, her scars worn on her skin, and the child in her womb, beating like a drum reminding her she was no longer alone. In front of her, journalist Sol Ibarra, known for her work defending abused women, prepared the live show. Around them, cameramen, technicians, assistants, all silent, all tense, as if witnessing something that would completely change the public conversation. Camila sat in front of the microphone. Sol took her hand, firm, warm, no words needed. Take your time, she said. The countdown appeared on screen. 3, 2, 1. In millions of homes, offices, hospitals, police stations, beauty salons, and taxis, screens lit up. On them, Camila's face appeared for the first time since her disappearance. The country froze. My name is Camila Vergara, she began in a steady voice, without hesitation. And I am not dead. A sacred silence fell over the studio. For months, I lived locked in a house where I wasn't allowed to have friends, make decisions, or breathe without asking permission. They took away my freedom, my voice, my will. They told me it was for love. They called me fragile, anxious, unstable. They filled me with pills I didn't need. They recorded me, spied on me, isolated me. And then, they threw me into a pit, like someone discarding a broken piece of furniture. Images of her injured face, falsified medical records, testimonies from farm workers, and hidden recordings Gabriel had gathered appeared on screen. An irrefutable timeline. Forceful. Overwhelming. Sol looked at Camila with absolute respect. Why did you decide to speak now? Camila took a deep breath. Because if I stayed silent, he would win. I don't want other women to think they have to accept confinement disguised as protection. I want them to know that the cage may be made of roses, but it's still a cage. The hashtag Camila Lives trended in seconds. Feminist groups began organizing protests. Recognized figures from entertainment, politics, and human rights posted messages of support. The streets filled with voices shouting what she had whispered with tears for so long. Enough. In preventive detention, Esteban watched the interview from an isolation room, surrounded by 4 white walls with a small TV mounted on the wall. He didn't blink. He didn't shout. He just smiled, as if he had already foreseen it. The Attorney General demanded urgent measures. Files were reopened. Witnesses were summoned. The entire power apparatus that once protected Esteban began to crumble. His public image collapsed like a house of cards. Gabriel went to find Camila after the show. He brought flowers. Not roses, but sunflowers. She didn't meet him at the door. She was in the kitchen, sitting with a cup of tea in her hands. The pregnancy was progressing. Her skin was paler, but her eyes brighter. Gabriel entered slowly. "You were amazing." "I just told the truth," she replied without looking at him. "I know this isn't the right time, but I needed to see you." "Why?" "Because I can't stop thinking about you." Camila looked at him. There was tenderness, but also distance. "I don't know if I can trust again. Anyone." Gabriel lowered his gaze. "I understand. It's not your fault," Camila said. "But you were part of it. You were there. And you didn't see. I was blind. I justified it. I thought I was intense, that I was protecting you, but I didn't want to see what was obvious." Camila nodded, not with resentment, but with resigned sadness. "I'm pregnant." Gabriel nodded too. "I know. The baby has a problem. In the heart. It's congenital. It needs surgery at birth. And for that, it needs a compatible donor." The silence became unbearable. "Esteban is the only one who could be compatible," she finally said. Gabriel closed his eyes. "And what are you going to do?" "I'm going to ask him to donate." "Do you think he'll agree?" "I'm not doing it for him. I'm doing it for a child who didn't choose to be born among our ruins." Days later, Camila entered the maximum security prison. The meeting was authorized by court order. Esteban was sitting in a cold room with a guard at the door. He wore a gray uniform. He looked gaunt, but his eyes were still alive. Too alive. "Look who's back," he said with a crooked smile. Camila sat down across from him. "I'm pregnant. And the baby has a heart defect. It needs a compatible marrow. They've already done the tests. You're the only viable donor." Esteban watched her closely. He played with his fingers. Then he smiled. "What do I get out of this?" "Nothing. Don't underestimate me, Camila. Everyone wants something. Why would you come all the way here to ask me that after everything?" "Because this isn't about you. It's about him. A child who isn't to blame for your traumas or my wounds. A child who deserves to live." Esteban leaned back. "What if I say no? Then he dies. And you live with that. You think I'd care?" Camila leaned over the table. "No. But I know you need to control. And this is your last chance to have power over me. What you don't know is that even if you refuse, I'm no longer afraid of you." Esteban looked at her. For the first time, without a smile. "Do it," he said at last. The procedure was scheduled quickly. Don Pedro signed as Camila's temporary guardian. Gabriel accompanied her to the hospital. Everything was clinical, white, and human. Camila didn't speak. She only stroked her belly and thought about the life she had to protect, even if it meant receiving a part of Esteban and her child. The operation was successful. The baby held on. Its heart began to beat strongly, as if, from the beginning, it had decided to cling to life more fiercely than anyone else. Camila stayed in the recovery room for days. On the television, news about Esteban kept airing. New charges, more victims, statements from former partners. His downfall was public, painful, and slow. Gabriel sat down beside her. "What are you going to do now?" "Live. Raise my son. Help other women like me. Turn my pain into something useful. And me." Camila looked at him. "You're part of my story, Gabriel. But I don't know if you'll be part of my future." He nodded. He didn't insist. "No matter what happens," he said, "I'll be here. Because even though I couldn't protect you before, now I want to be. In whatever way you decide." Camila smiled for the first time in weeks. "Thank you." The hospital camera captured that moment. Mother and son. The beginning of another story. A life woven from the ruins. A silent victory. A return that didn't seek revenge, but justice. And a rebirth that no one, not even death, could prevent. The newborn's cry broke the silence of the room like a stream of water finally released after years of drought. Camila held him with trembling hands, feeling that sound tear not only the air but also the veil of the past. The baby was small, fragile, with still wrinkled skin and a newly mended heart beating with the strength of one who has survived even before knowing the world. He didn't cry out of joy, not even relief. He cried for everything that had to be lost to reach this moment. For the women who never came back, for the silenced voices, for the little girl she once was and who now didn't know if anything of her remained in the new mother forming in her place. Gabriel entered the room with his head bowed and eyes moist. He didn't ask if he could come closer. He just stood there, by the door, like a silent guardian of a scene that wasn't his, but hurt him as if it were. "How are you?" he asked, knowing it was an insufficient question. Camila didn't answer at first. She watched her son's tiny fingers, the steady rhythm of his breathing. She gently touched his forehead with a gesture she hadn't learned, born from a pure part of herself that hadn't been corrupted. "He's going to be named Elias," she said finally, without looking at him. Gabriel nodded. "That's a strong name." "It has to be." "And you? Do you feel strong?" Camila looked at him. Not with hostility, nor with tenderness. With a truth she wasn't afraid to hurt. "I'm empty and full at the same time. Does that count?" Gabriel stepped forward, sat beside the bed without touching her. "That's exactly what being alive means." Days passed. Camila didn't return to the city house. She settled in a small home in the countryside, near the place where Pedro had built his refuge. She didn't want cameras. She didn't want reports. She had spoken enough. Now she wanted to act. To change what could be changed. She began working with a group of women who had gone through similar situations. Some had escaped their partners. Others were in legal processes. Many had no family or resources. All bore the same shadow in their eyes, the shadow of having trusted someone they shouldn't have. Camila used her savings, then anonymous donations, to found a place she called the Elias Center. A place where motherhood, freedom, and dignity weren't luxuries, but rights. They didn't talk about Esteban there. Not even about Gabriel. They only talked about the future. Pedro visited her every week. He no longer seemed like the forest hermit, but a redeemed grandfather. He played with Elias, told him stories about trees and horses, and sometimes, when Camila wasn't looking, he cried silently, seeing how his past mistakes had blossomed into something he didn't deserve, but was deeply grateful for. Gabriel came many times, but never stayed too long. He didn't cross the line. He knew Camila needed space. Not a heal, because healing was too clean a word, but to rebuild herself from the rubble. Still, he stayed close. In the moments she allowed him. One afternoon, while Elias slept in Pedro's arms, Gabriel approached Camila in the garden the women of the center cultivated. She was crouched down, planting onions with hands full of dirt. "I received a letter," he said bluntly. Camila didn't stop. "From whom?" "From Esteban's lawyer. They found it among his things after the procedure." Camila stood up slowly. She wiped her hands on her apron. "He's dead, isn't he?" "Yes." "Complications." The doctor said his body was already damaged. It wasn't immediate, but he didn't make it. She didn't cry. Nor did she celebrate. She just nodded, like someone hearing it rained on another continent. Gabriel handed her the envelope. "I didn't want to open it without you." Camila took it. She weighed it in her hand as if she knew that inside that paper there weren't words, but dynamite. She walked to the shed, opened it slowly. Gabriel stayed outside. He waited for her, as always. Inside, the evening light drew lines on the floor. Camila sat on an old blanket and opened the letter. The handwriting was recognizable. Precise. Elegant. Cold. "Camila, I don't expect you to read this with compassion, nor to believe every word. I only hope you read it, not to redeem myself. I know what I am, and I know what I did. No one pushed me into the abyss. I chose it. Since I was a child, I was the property of a broken woman. Alicia wasn't a mother. She was a prison with a smile. She taught me to obey, to be silent, to smile in public and tremble in private. She taught me that pain is managed, that love is bought, that fear is inherited. And when I became a man, I didn't know how to be anything but the reflection of that. Gabriel was her favorite. I was her investment. The day your childhood home caught fire, I was there. You didn't know, right? Alicia took me. She said she needed to close a deal. She was the one who left the candle lit near the curtain. I saw it. I knew it. But I did nothing. I was 13. And I already knew that mistakes were buried. Like your brother. Since then, you have been my redemption. Although I didn't want to redeem myself. I wanted to possess you. I succeeded. But I lost everything at the same time. And when I understood that you were not mine, but yours, it was already too late. I hope Elias is not like me. And if he carries my blood, I hope the pain is diluted in all the love you will give him. I hate you for outliving me, but I also admire you. This is not forgiveness. It is acknowledgement. Esteban. Camila closed her eyes. She felt something warm slide down her chest. Tears. Not for Esteban. Not for what he confessed. But for everything left unsaid, for all that pain had distorted. She burned the letter that same night. Not out of fear, but by choice. Some truths don't need to be archived. Just ended. A few months later, the Elias Center became a beacon. They received recognition from international organizations. Camila was invited to give talks, but only accepted those held at schools. She wanted to speak with young people, with girls who still could choose differently, with boys who still didn't know that being a man isn't about dominating, but about caring. Gabriel stayed close, helping however he could. There was no romance, no magical reunions, just presence. And sometimes, that's enough. One morning, Camila took Elias to the natural spring where Pedro used to collect water. She placed him on a blanket and sat beside him. The baby laughed, kicked the air, looked at the trees as if they were friendly giants. "Do you know why you're called that?" she said, stroking his hair because Elias was a prophet who spoke in deserts, who brought fire to the sky and gave up power for justice. Because your life came from the mud, from the well, from the silence. But not to repeat it, to break it. The water flowed gently over the stones. The sun pierced through the branches, drawing circles on the ground. Camila closed her eyes. A faint voice whispered in her memory. Sometimes you have to fall into the darkest well to learn to see the light we still keep inside. And for the first time in a long time, she smiled without guilt. Because she had survived. Because she had chosen. Because, though broken, she was still standing. And that, in her story, was more than enough. If you enjoyed this story, I invite you to leave a comment telling me how it made you feel. And if you've been through a similar situation of deception, I'd love for you to share your valuable opinion. Remember to tell me which city you're watching this video from. I would be very honored if you leave a like, share the video with a friend or family member, and subscribe to the channel. Don't miss the next surprising story that's appearing on your screen right now. We have guaranteed entertainment exclusively for you. See you in the next video.